Today on Legally Us, Taylor Swift gets a response from the college teen tracking her flights. Janelle Evans' child protective service case is dropped, and an Outer Banks star is arrested for assaulting medical staff. Plus, Kevin Costner's divorce is officially settled. We got that plus so much more in today's Legally Us. Everyone, and welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina. That's, of course, Neama Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Neama. How are you?
Doing great, Christina. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. We're going to kick this off with an update to a case that we talked about a few weeks ago regarding Taylor Swift. So she got a response from the college student to whom she sent a cease and desist letter for tracking her private jet on Instagram. So Jack Sweeney took to Twitter, X, and posted a 2-page letter he sent to Taylor claiming he did absolutely nothing wrong by showing her flight path to the world. He wrote that there's no law that supports her cease and desist except for stalking, which does not apply since Sweeney has never made a credible threat against Taylor. So the attorney pointed out that Sweeney merely uploaded publicly available data from the Federal Aviation Administration to track Taylor's plane's movements. And that pretty much echoes what you said a few weeks ago that, Taylor doesn't really have a leg to stand on in this case since this is public information.
Yeah, Christina, that's exactly what I said. And I'm not surprised that the lawyers said the exact same thing. We all love Taylor Swift, and I know that she has had some stalking incidents that she's dealt with. But really, there's no claim here. Her lawyers fired off a letter, and that's what lawyers do. But I'm not surprised that the response was what it is. This is public information, so there's nothing that she can do.
Right. So there's really no way forward in this. Will Taylor make a move now that she has received this letter?
I don't think so, because this has already gotten some bad publicity for her. Right. And, I think this was more of a strongly worded letter than a lawsuit or anything like that. And, she did talk about stalking, but it's really a bridge too far to say that, posting publicly available information or compiling it or tweeting about it or X or other social media, it's just not enough. And really, they talked about stalking in my home state of California, but really, you're talking about someone that lives in Florida, another person that lives in Tennessee and New York. So I'm not even sure those California statutes would apply.
Right. Yeah. Like we said before, I think this was more of a scare tactic on Taylor's end, and doesn't seem to have worked.
Not at all. And we know, Elon Musk did something similar with this individual. And I get it. It's annoying. It's frustrating, but it's not legally actionable. And, the letter said that we trust that this will end the matter. And this is the end of it. And I fully expect that this is probably the last we'll hear about it. I don't expect Taylor to file a lawsuit over this because it would be a loser.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on over to Janelle Evans. So Child Protective Services has dropped a case involving Janelle and her husband, David Eason, and her son, Jace. So North Carolina court records obtained by E! News show that the Columbus County Department of Social Services dismissed a juvenile petition over the 14-year-old, which was filed last October. So Janelle said on TikTok that CPS took a voluntary dismissal, and I wanted to be the first to let you guys know. In a separate statement, she said, we are still working on Jace's mental health at this time, so I don't want to share many details involving the case. When my son is in a better headspace, then we will share more in-depth information soon. So why would this case be dropped? I believe Jace has a history of running away. Her husband has also been charged with child abuse. So why does this just automatically go away or all of a sudden go away?
I was surprised the case went away. There's obviously something going on. So it's important to separate the two cases. You have the case against Janelle and her husband from Child Protective Services. That's essentially to take the child away from them. But then you still have a separate criminal case against Janelle's husband. And that criminal case is still ongoing for alleged strangulation. So there's some pretty serious allegations here. But each case is different, and there are different decision makers. So sometimes, for instance, in a DUI, which is the most common type of crime, a DWI, you might get your license suspended by the DMV in an administrative proceeding, but maybe you'll be found not guilty in a criminal case. And that's sort of what we're dealing with here. It's not necessarily an administrative case. It's a civil case involving child custody. But for some reason, the individuals who are handling the case thought that there's not enough evidence to move forward, or there's some other reason to dismiss the charges. So they're going to maintain custody, but that doesn't mean that her husband's criminal problems have gone away.
Right. So they can't look into those criminal charges and have that influence this case then?
Potentially, yes. They can always,
Right.
just because something's dismissed doesn't mean it can't be refiled. And, we've seen it with other cases that we've covered here. So, for instance, Ruby Frank, right? Where,
Right.
there's a case where, there's complaints and there's an investigation and the kids aren't necessarily taken away in the first instance. But oftentimes when there's allegations of abuse, there may be others and other evidence that comes out. And finally, probably really against Ruby and Judy, it was too little, too late. I mean, the kids were abused for quite some time. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but just because it's closed now doesn't mean it won't necessarily be reopened at some later time if more evidence comes out.
Right. Were you surprised about the 60 years for Ruby?
I wasn't, because we're talking about some pretty serious allegations, torturing her children. And, there's really nothing worse than a parent who physically, sexually abuses their own child. And this is something that really got a lot of attention and was swept under the rug for quite some time. And I think the judge wanted to send a message in that case that, look, this type of behavior is not going to be tolerated. And not only did she do this, she posted it on her YouTube channel,
Right.
Depicting some of this abuse. So it really victimized those kids even more.
Terrible. It really is. All right. Moving on to Outer Banks actor Austin North. He was arrested in Las Vegas after he allegedly assaulted several emergency room staff members. So he was taken into custody on February 13th and booked for gross misdemeanor battery. So law enforcement was dispatched to UMC Hospital for reports of assault and battery that had occurred in the ER. So according to interviews included in the report, North allegedly punched a nurse in the head, shoved the face of another nurse, and pushed the phlebotomist into a table. So in addition to attacking one additional staff member. So he released a statement saying that my friend drove me to the hospital because I thought I was having a heart attack. Several tests were taken, including blood, which came back negative for any drugs or alcohol in my system. I was having a severe anxiety attack. He said that he has the utmost respect for healthcare workers and hospital staff, and he has battled anxiety on and off for years. And this was the most extreme panic attack he's ever had. So will he be charged, since he is saying that this was a medical emergency?
Christina, I don't know, and maybe not, and this is why. We know that an anxiety attack or panic attack can cause someone to feel chest pain, similar to a heart attack. So I think that part of Austin's story checks out. So then the question is, there's this episode in the ER, and he is attacking, at least admittedly attacking, the hospital staff there. So criminal charges require some type of intent. Either you have to do it intentionally or at least recklessly. That's what happened with Jonathan Majors. He was found not to have acted intentionally, but at least recklessly. So the question is, if Austin really doesn't remember or doesn't know what he's doing, can he be charged? The answer is not under criminal law. So it's really a question of, did that anxiety attack, did it truly cause him to forget and to not know what he was doing? And if the answer to that is yes, and there's medical doctors that are going to substantiate that defense, then really he can't be prosecuted.
Right. Can the individual staff of the hospital then press charges against him if they wanted to?
Potentially, and that's kind of the difference between a criminal and a civil case. The standard for civil is much lower. You can always file a lawsuit, and that just requires simple negligence. You're basically not careful, and you cause someone to get hurt. So a lot easier to file a civil lawsuit, and it's going to be up to those individual staff members to decide whether to do so or not.
Got it. Okay. Well, Kevin Costner and Christine Baumgartner's divorce or marriage is officially over. We've talked about this one for months. They signed a marital settlement agreement, which puts an end to their months-long divorce saga. In addition to having their marriage dissolved, the pair is excused from completing the parent education and co-parenting, effectively PEACE class. The documents also state that both parties agreed that the court could compel them to complete the classes should custody issues arise in the future. So what exactly is a marital settlement agreement? Is this just a document that says we are done and dusted, we're good?
That's exactly what it is, Christina. It's a settlement agreement, and it's a settlement agreement in a divorce case. And I don't know what's going on in 2024, but some of our nasty divorces, first with Brad and Angelina, looks like maybe it's wrapping up, and now Kevin and Christina. But essentially the parties decided to, despite everything that's been said publicly, decide to resolve this once and for all. And we knew that Kevin had a very good prenuptial agreement, and he was winning most of the issues that were being litigated. So maybe Christina saw the writing on the wall and decided, let's walk away from all this.
All right. Well, Neama, thank you so much for your expertise, as always. Lots of interesting stories this week.
Yes, very, Christina. See you next week.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.